Good day, ladies and gentlemen, Briareos Kerensky here for a double feature review. Once again, this video is about two games by Clone, which I'm pretty sure want to destroy anything remotely good that Milestone left before going under. A brief recap might be necessary. Milestone was a software house specializing in shooters. Their products never had that quid to make them spectacular, but most were at least fun to play. Milestone closed in 2013 due to shady practices. Clone picked up their franchises, releasing Karos the Beast of Re-Eden and Radirji the Gojaru on the 3DS. You can see the review of these two games here. In short, they were quite far from being good. Not done yet, Clone reworked Illvelo, probably the most obscure of Milestone shooters, also announcing that there will be a collection of Milestone games for the Xbox 360, which brings us to today's double review. Illvelo, the portmanteau of Illmatic Envelope, has been renamed Illvelo Dillinjah. It's available as a download-only game for the 3DS. The game was originally hosted on Naomi boards, like all other Milestone shooters, but wasn't ported on the Dreamcast, seeing release on the Wii as a pack-in with Radirji Noah as a standalone game and part of various collections, some of which even got localized for the Western market by UFO Interactive. Rather than simply creating a new Illvelo, Clone reworked the game completely, and I must give them credit for this, as the tiny 3DS screens are a bad fit for the chaos that is Illvelo. The original game progresses like a standard shooter, with tiny warp points scattered throughout the levels. Warps bring the player to sort of bonus stages where the objective is to destroy every enemy within a short time limit. As you can see, the screen in Illvelo is constantly filled by enemies that almost perfectly blend with the backdrop, with the game being a constant sensory overload. Illvelo Dillinjah on the 3DS is a mission shooter, all of them available from the start. Missions are played like the original bonus stages and don't last very long. Completing a mission once is rewarded by a bronze key. Silver and gold keys are awarded when completing the mission a second and a third time, respectively. Unfortunately, enemy patterns, time limits or objectives do not change between keys. Missions can be tackled with different ships. Initially you can use the trucks from Illvelo, the Deterrent from Karos and Kojiro from Radirji. Changing ship barely affects how a mission is played, although ships behave in different ways. Kojiro, with the ability to spam its ABS net to absorb bullets and damage enemies, comes out as overpowered, and the Trax feels the less able in its own game. Gone are also the different fire modes for all ships, effectively removing any depth from the game. Then you realize that the missions you are playing are strangely familiar, and that's because some missions and enemy patterns have been lifted wholesale from Karos the Best of Re-Eden and Radirji the Gojaru. Illvelo Dillinjah is another poor attempt at a shoot-em-up, barely better than Radirji the Gojaru due to the amount of content, but completely unoriginal and totally not worth your time. Now we come to Sakura Flamingo Archives, a collection for the X360 featuring Chaos Field, Radirji, Karos, Illvelo and Radirji Noah. All these games have been already ported to home consoles, either as standalone games or part of other collections. It's the first time they get a release on HD consoles, although Radirji Noah was ported on the X360 as Radirji Noah Massive, an improved version of the Wii game. First impressions aren't that good. Menus are simple text entries with a lot of screen space left empty, where the 3DS games at least use the wall surfaces with icons stylized after the content. Options are minimal, only allowing to customize controls and audio levels. Options in the main menu only affect the two original modes included, every other game has its own settings. The two new modes are Mixtures and Death. Mixture allows you to select all ships from the included games and shoot your way through 4 stages taken from Illvelo, without the warps. Enemy patterns vary slightly between ships, and the chosen ship is the only connection to its original game. no leveling system from Karos, no field changing from Chaos Field, not even the multiplier from the 2 Radirji. Beating all the stages takes less than 15 minutes, and once done there is no incentive in replaying Mixture. Death mode is Radirji the Gojaru. You have to defend a bunker from enemy waves for as long as you can. It suffers from the same problems of Mixture, as without connections to specific game mechanics, all ships feel completely out of place and just a different way to attack the incoming waves. Death mode is slightly better than Radirji the Gojaru, as it actually requires you to dodge bullets within the first minute of the game, but it's even less appealing than Mixture. Luckily, Mixture and Death can be considered secondary to Revision mode, although they are the first 2 entries in the main menu. Selecting Revision mode opens up a submenu where you can choose the different feature games. The versions present in Sakura Flamingo Archives are straight from arcade ports, lacking many features found in previous console conversions. All games now run in high resolution, without many of the slowdowns present on less powerful consoles. Sakura Flamingo Archives, however, introduces new slowdowns due to bad loading. The games themselves take longer to start on the X360, and loading between levels are longer. All games also have hiccups at very specific junctions, like where Radirji and Karos show messages. Nevertheless to say, this issue was not present in previous ports. Chaos Field has been hit pretty hard by this loading problem. The game stops in between boss segments, and a couple of times I've got the game freeze on me. No other game has ever frozen, but every time a game stops for a second or two, I fear it would. Just like the previous ports, all games have pretty bare-bone options, with no extra wallpapers or the ability to set sound levels, something that's standard nowadays. The most glaring omission, however, is Tate mode. No game, including Mixture and Death, supports screen rotation. Granted, this doesn't affect Chaos Field and Radirji Noah, but the other games are vertical shooters constrained in an horizontal screen. Every other vertical shooter on the X360 offers screen rotation, even Radirji Noah Massive. The lack of Tate mode alone is enough to doom Sakura Flamingo Archives, but let's see how individual games fare against their old conversions. Chaos Field is available on a number of formats, including the Dreamcast and the GameCube, and I own the latter. The GameCube version is called Expanded and features 2 game modes, Arcade and Original. Original mode is absent in Sakura Flamingo Archives. Thanks to the X360's horsepower, Chaos Field is able to run at a more steady pace than on the GameCube when in Chaos mode, but don't forget the aforementioned loading and crash problems. The X360 version curiously lacks some detail and textures during the introduction, but this is probably due to the GameCube version being in haste from the arcade original. Radirji was originally released on the Dreamcast, with PS2 and GameCube versions following sometime later. The Dreamcast port was bare-bone, and with the exception of Tate mode, Sakura Flamingo Archives has everything the DC port had. Like every other game, Radirji runs at a constant pace. The only thing bogging it down are those strange micro-pauses to load messages. Carouse is the same as Radirji. A bare-bone Dreamcast port, and all options are available, except from Tate mode. Carouse looks particularly good in high resolution, and although the game still suffers from a moody color palette, the extra pixels make things much easier to see. Again, there are micro-pauses when messages are loaded, but the strangest problem here are sound levels. This is Carouse on the Dreamcast. This is Carouse on the X360. The constant buzzings of the ship's projectiles and sword swiping is carried in mixture and death mode as well, so this sounds like a deliberate decision. The sound effects on the Dreamcast were muted, but the arrangement was better than hearing constant buzzes that completely hide the BGM as on the X360. This might be due to me having the X360 set up for surround, but just like the load and freeze problems, this should not happen. The first home port of Illvelo was on the Wii, on the same disc as Radirji Noah. It was later released as a standalone with new modes added. The Sakura Flamingo Archives version lacks these extra modes, although the menu entry to start the game still says Arcade Mode, like these extra modes were just removed from some strange reason. Anyway, the lack of these modes isn't particularly crippling, as they weren't that interesting. Like with Carouse, Illvelo greatly benefits from the higher resolution. The art direction can be described as chaotic, and there is nothing better than improved resolution to give new life to the various sprites. This is the game where Tate mode would have made wonders, as even in 720p, things can be easily missed. Radirji Noah was first released on the Wii as a standalone. It was a good port, the game ran with only few slowdowns when the screen got particularly busy. Despite having a vertical scrolling, the screen was fixed to horizontal with the addition of two sidebars. The Sakura Flamingo Archives version removes the slowdown, but it's otherwise as the Wii version. I'd say that Radirji Noah is the best game in this collection, it's the most refined of the bunch and the most fun to play. However, the X360 already has Radirji Noah Massive, an improved version of the Wii port, and if you are interested, you should be looking for that. To close, Sakura Flamingo Archives is a bad collection. It doesn't offer basic options that should be present in all home ports of vertical shooters, makes bad use of the console it's hosted on, it has a bare-bone presentation, forgettable secondary modes, and a series of other big and small problems that make impossible to recommend it to anyone. I hope you have enjoyed this double feature review and you'll stick around for more. Briareos Kerensky, over and out.